we're going to do a quick little video. We're going to talk about bioactive substrate. And bioactive substrate is having a cage or a situation where there's enough mulch and media in the bottom of the cage that insects can live in there and they can break down material. And they'll, certainly in a herbivore cage, let's say like an iguana or Cuban iguana, rhino iguana, some kind of herbivore, there's a lot of food down there that is quite usable for things like roaches. These are orange-headed roaches. It's like a 4-spot, 6-spot Guyana roach. And these are very subterranean, which means that they spend a great deal of time underground below the leaf litter. Here's a big adult female. This is a very substantial roach. And if you're squeamish of roaches, this is nothing like a German roach. These are quite pleasant little beasts. And if you put some of these guys in this cage, let's see. Ready? Let's see if he even reacts to them. So if I take this, I'm gonna seed this cage with these guys, and I don't want that. What I don't want is a lobster roach. No lobster roaches if I can help it. So I'm sitting here inspecting nymphs, adult males, females, in the other bin. So I can take that. I'm going to put these in this cage. And the trick is getting your initial colony in there without, I know, you're getting all excited. What's this? Let's see. You want that? Look at that. Even though he's a big boy, he still will be reactive to little bugs. So the trick is to get these roaches into the substrate without being picked off. And I'm noticing with water monitors, they will hunt down roaches. And there's a nice big female right there. And they will hunt down these roaches and eat them. So we're trying to set up this colony. These roaches do very well. So now the next trick is you have to basically take care of your roaches. And taking care of your roaches is we're using tortoise diet. And you just put, you don't go too crazy because it's going to mold up. And what you can do is you can come back and once or twice a week, you can put a little bit of orange slice in here. And sometimes you can put the orange slice underneath something and have something flat over it. And before long, your roaches will start realizing that that could be like a feeding station. And you just leave it just like this. Doesn't really look like much. And we're considering the long-term aspect of this. So these roaches over time are going to start building in numbers. As they build in numbers, some of them will get picked off by these animals. But more importantly, they're going to have babies. And those babies are going to continue to break down all this material. So this is a huge amount of material in this cage. Long term, this is going to break down. It's going to be very much like soil, even though it started up with components like leaves, peat moss, bark mulch, cypress mulch, even a little bit of sand sometimes sphagnum moss or whatever. But eventually, maybe a year or 2 years later, it turns into dirt. And when you have a cage like this that's large enough with a water vessel, sometimes you'll notice that these animals are defecating in areas often in the water, which keeps the cage generally pretty clean. And water monitors especially, if you do it right, you can get them to do most of their business in the water and really not ruin the cage. So larger cages are easier to keep clean than small cages. And you certainly want to be very leery about water spilling into the substrate, because really wet, disgusting substrate is a whole other problem. You're going to get aerobic bacteria, and it's just disgusting. It can really smell, and you get like the swamp-like thing. So you want to let this material be the consistency of, you know, like you'd see outside normal dirt. You know, you want it there's some moisture. You do not want it soppy wet. And if you do just strictly like cypress mulch or bark mulch, you're going to tend to get this material that once you get it wet, gets very, very sloppy. So you want to add, you know, you can add potting soil, sand, peat moss. Peat moss works really well, but it can be really messy. So sometimes you want the peat moss down deep, and then you want things like leaves or whatever on the surface. All right, so this is bioactive substrate, and you can do this with, you know, a smaller cage, but you definitely need a deep layer of substrate. If I were to try to do this in a cage where the substrate was only a few inches, the humidity in that cage would constantly change, and so things like these roaches or whatever, they often wouldn't do that well, and they'd also be quite vulnerable to the predators above. So, you know, whatever your monitor is, these guys, you know, well, they're opportunistic, so they will eat insects and whatever, you know, is moving around, and I can't even speak today, moving about and getting their attention. So even though this croc monitor is really big, it will certainly eat these roaches if one's right in front of it and it feels the need to. So you want to create a situation where the roaches have safety. You know, you can use isopods, you can use little, you know, wood lice, whatever you want, stuff that you could find outside. Even, and those things will work really, really well. I certainly have things like earwigs in these cages and whatever, and none of this stuff. I'm an insect guy, so I love insects, and so none of that stuff really bothers me whatsoever. But you need to have volume. You need to have a safety area for these guys. And what's really nice is when you get a lot of this stuff going on, you avoid hard packed areas. Like right here, I'm feeling a very hard packed area because this is an area where we walk into this cage and we're constantly packing this down. So you kind of want this fluffy with voids in between. So using different components for the mix certainly helps it be that way. But you do not want, like, you know, just dirt and mired down. And one thing to note, if you are taking dirt from your yard and you live in North America, your dirt is filled with things like nematodes. So, you know, roundworms, all that different stuff. And these are literally parasites that your dogs can pick up. We can pick up anything. And certainly your cold-blooded lizards can pick up. So if you get a bunch of dirt from your yard and it were to be riddled with these parasites, these animals can certainly ingest those, and you've just taken sometimes a captive-born animal and you've just inoculated it with a parasite that they're not even familiar with. So you want to consider these things. Just use your smarts. You can certainly go to Home Depot or whatever and buy all sorts of different soils that don't have anything in them. And one thing I need to note, when you are buying any of this material, make sure it doesn't have any kind of insecticides in it. There we go, nice little bug right there. We don't want any kind of mulch that has any anti-insecticide inside. Thanks. Wow, this is terrible. I cannot speak. I keep getting distracted. I'm looking up. You just put your head away. But anyways, you guys get my point. This is a B grade bubblegum video because Kevin has marbles in his mouth. All right. Hopefully this made a little bit of sense, but bioactive substrate, take one. Bye.